President rebuked. House Speaker John Boehner takes issue with the administration on nuclear talks with Iran. Pro-life senator. We have a one-on-one with South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, a new pro-life proponent on Capitol Hill. Converging on D.C. Pro-lifers journey here for the March for Life, beginning with Mass at the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. And sacred tradition. Pope Francis blesses the lambs, providing wool for palliums for new archbishops. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, January 21st, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. Fresh from Capitol Hill to the nation's heartland, President Obama hits the road tonight, rallying support for his State of the Union proposals. Wyatt Goolsby reports.
That's right, Brian. The president is visiting two traditionally Republican states, Idaho and Kansas. He's expected to promote themes from last night's speech, which is making waves today on both sides of the aisle. In his sixth State of the Union, the president concentrated on economic issues.
Our economy is growing and creating jobs at the fastest pace since 1999.
The president also pushed the issue of helping the middle class through tax changes and making education more affordable.
And that's why I'm sending this Congress a bold new plan to lower the cost of community college to zero.
In foreign policy, the president said the U.S. would stand up to terrorists. He also said U.S. military action in Iraq and Syria stopped Islamic State militants from advancing and that the battle there isn't over.
And tonight I call on this Congress to show the world that we are united in this mission by passing a resolution to authorize the use of force against ISIL.
The president also pressed Congress to end the embargo with Cuba, citing the Pope, who was instrumental in helping the two countries normalize relations.
As His Holiness Pope Francis has said, diplomacy is the work of small steps.
One of the Senate's newest members, Joni Ernst of Iowa, delivered the Republican response. She said Republicans understand that the economy isn't as strong as the rosy picture the president painted.
We see our neighbors agonize over stagnant wages and lost jobs. We see the hurt caused by canceled health care plans and higher monthly insurance bills.
A topic that continues to be a political battleground in 2015. In Washington, Wyatt Goolsby, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Wyatt. President Obama promises to veto any sanctions against Iran that may be proposed by Congress. He claims sanctions would cause the failure of negotiations to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran. In response, immediately, House Speaker John Boehner invited Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a staunch opponent of Iran, to address Congress. The White House fires back today, saying that invitation is a breach of diplomatic protocol. The administration says phone calls between leaders typically precede such invitations. The Speaker, however, defends his move.
I did not consult with the White House. The Congress can make this decision on its own. And the fact is that there needs to be a more serious conversation in America about how serious the threat is from radical Islamic jihadists and the threat posed by Iran.
The Israeli Prime Minister has accepted the invitation to talk about Iran before a joint session of Congress February the 11th. The White House says it will reserve judgment for now, pending further discussion with the Israelis about the speech. Niraj Chokshi reports on politics for the Washington Post. Joseph Lawler is an economics reporter for the Washington Examiner. Joe, last night the president told Americans the recession is over. What do you make of that claim and the tone in which he delivered it?
Right. I think that last night what President Obama wanted to do was to define a liberal economic agenda for the last 2 years of his term. He said we're out of the woods of the recession. Now he needs to present a plan for the next problem facing Americans, which is the fact that although our jobs situation is improving, the economy is adding jobs, there still haven't been a lot of wage gains. Incomes still are lower than they were prior to the recession, and families are feeling stressed about things like affording college, healthcare, retirement, those big middle class, big ticket items. So those were the concerns he tried to speak to, I think.
Well, when it comes to the economy, really, the president's role is confidence building. What do you think of his persona last night? Was he able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the speech was assertive. it was an attempt at table setting, at setting the debate for the next 2 years, and I do think that I think that he, at least among his loyal base, I think he achieved that. I think he was able to convey, sort of strength and leadership to them.
His critics see him as kind of soft in, especially against terrorism. Now, he called on Congress to authorize the use of force against Islamic State terrorists. Is that a reversal of strategy?
So it's a little complicated. 2 years ago, the administration promised that they would refine and repeal, I think was the language they used, the 2001 and 2002 authorization of military force against Iraq and against al-Qaeda. Then over the summer, they actually leaned on the al-Qaeda authorization to begin airstrikes against the Islamic State. Now he's saying that he wants the authorization of force. I think that they recognize that this has evolved. This enemy has evolved beyond what al-Qaeda was.
And that's something he's likely to get support on from the Republicans, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Today, though, there have been many Republicans have come out and said, we're not going to take the leadership on this. This is, you're asking for it. Give us something, and we'll look it over. And so they're kind of pushing the ball back in his court.
So then he also rolled out his tax and spend initiatives, things like free 2-year community college, affordable child care. The Republicans are probably not going to go along with this. What happened to all this talk of bipartisanship?
Right, this was about messaging. I think he realizes that most of these initiatives are not likely to go far, but it's about setting an agenda, it's about setting a tone, and promoting the message. President Obama and Democrats are in favor of the middle classes, middle class economics, and avoiding the criticism that it is just tax and spend, that it's the kind of class warfare. That's the kind of criticism that Republicans are most likely to voice and have mentioned since last night.
Niraj, was there anything he said or omitted that stuck out to you?
One interesting moment was actually one of the few ad-lib moments, and that was when he had spent a few minutes sort of talking about the need for a new politics, the need to join together, and then he mentioned that he wouldn't be running any more campaigns, obviously. And the response to that, among some, was to start clapping, and he went off script there, and he said, but I did win the two. And I think that was sort of an unfortunate moment for both sides in a way. I mean, he had just come off talking about this, and Republicans were celebrating that, and then he sniped right back. But I think he achieved his goal. If his goal was to show that assertiveness, he achieved his goal, at least for his base, and for his detractors. I mean, nothing he could have done would have been good.
We'll see. Niraj Chakshi, thanks for joining us. Joseph Lawler, we appreciate you very much, both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the new Republican. Some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. The new Republican-controlled Congress is already beginning to chip away at Roe v. Wade. Facing a promised veto, the House is poised to vote on a bill to prohibit abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy. The legislative action coincides with tomorrow's March for Life. More from Suzanne LaFranchi.
How do we save the most children in the quickest amount of time?
That mission has driven Marjorie Dannenfelser to fight abortion for 22 years. It's a battle hundreds of thousands of pro-lifers will take part in tomorrow during the 41st annual March for Life here in Washington. As they rally, the House will be voting on the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. The bill would prohibit abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy.
There is no federal limit on abortion at all in this country. Up until birth, it is allowed. 2/3 of states have no limit after 20 weeks.
The legislation introduced the first day of the new congressional session includes exemptions for rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. While the bill does have widespread support in the House, some female Republicans are objecting to the requirement that rape victims must report the assault to police.
At 20 weeks, we know the child can feel pain. Conclusion, final, period.
Tim Scott is the first African-American pro-life senator and a co-sponsor of the 20-week abortion bill. He admits passage in the Senate will be tougher because it requires a filibuster-proof 60 votes. Yesterday, the president vowed to veto the bill, and he also brought up abortion at last night's State of the Union address.
We still may not agree on a woman's right to choose, but surely we can agree it's a good thing that teen pregnancies and abortions are nearing all-time lows.
Despite the roadblocks, Senator Scott remains committed to the cause.
If you're patient and you're persistent and you're passionate, you become powerful. And not the individual, but the topic. And so the evolution for the 20-week pain-capable legislation is sooner or later, I think it will be the law of the land.
Pro-life advocates say if this bill were to become law, it could save 18,000 lives annually. According to a recent Quinnipiac University poll, a majority of Americans, 60%, support banning abortion after 20 weeks. Brian?
Thanks, Suzanne. And a new poll actually finds that most Americans are still very uncomfortable with abortion. According to a Knights of Columbus Marist survey, 84% of Americans would ban abortion after 3 months of pregnancy. The same percentage say laws can protect both the well-being of the woman and the life of the unborn. 60% of Americans say abortion is morally wrong. After his headline-grabbing comments that Catholics don't have to breed like rabbits, Pope Francis praises large families as a gift from God.
Ci siamo abituati a vedere persone scartate. Questo è il motivo principale della povertà, non le famiglie numerose.
The Pope saying we become used to seeing people who have been discarded. That, he says, is the real cause of poverty, not big families. He says that while in the Philippines it gave him great consolation and hope to see so many large families who welcome children as a true gift of God, they know that every child is a blessing. Those are his words. Pope Francis now strongly condemning the violence in Niger.
Non si può fare la guerra in nome di Dio.
The Holy Father says you cannot make war in the name of God. There has been a surge of brutality towards Christians, children, and churches in the West African nation. Pope Francis says he is praying for reconciliation and peaceful coexistence there. The Vatican's longtime sex abuse prosecutor will head the new board to hear appeals by priests sanctioned for molesting minors. Bishop Charles Scicluna will head the panel, which includes some of the Vatican's most seasoned canon lawyers. In November, Pope Francis announced the creation of that panel to speed up the Vatican's review of appeals of priests sanctioned for abuse. Hundreds of accusations in recent years have significantly increased the caseload of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Bishop Scicluna has been praised by abuse victims for his tough line. He tells EWTN News Nightly it's a step forward ensuring justice for all victims of clergy sex abuse. Well, Shiite Hutu rebels holding Yemen's president captive in his home reach a deal to end a violent standoff. This late-night deal gives the rebel movement more say, but it leaves in question tonight who really controls the country. The rebels had removed presidential guards and deployed their own fighters. They wanted the post of vice president and several key government offices. One presidential aide earlier described Yemen at the point of no return. France announces sweeping new measures to counter extremism from within. Security and intelligence are being beefed up. A database of nationals with possible ties to extremists is in the works. Some 2,600 officers will be hired to counter extremism. The Prime Minister announced the measures today as France issues the first charges against 4 men for the Paris attacks that killed 20 people. Coming up, vowing never to give in to terrorism, Japan's Prime Minister works for the release of Japanese citizens held by ISIS. And on this feast of St. Agnes, 2 special lambs receive a papal blessing. It's Wednesday, January 21st, the Feast of St. Agnes. These pictures of Italy's Church of St. Agnes from the patrons of the arts and the Vatican Museum's Facebook page. The shrine contains the head of the saint, martyred at age 12. So Agnes is Latin for lamb, and Pope Francis blessed 2 lambs in a centuries-old tradition on today's feast. One wears a crown of white flowers, symbolizing the purity of St. Agnes. The other wears a red floral wreath to symbolize her faithful witness to a martyr's death. The wool of these lambs will be used to make new palliums. The pallium is a sign of honor and jurisdiction. The vestment is worn by the Pope and metropolitan archbishops in their churches and in their provinces. A U.S. delegation to Cuba begins 2 days of talks aimed at restoring diplomatic relations with the island nation. The first day focused on migratory issues.
We have serious concerns about the continuation of the Cuban Adjustment Act and the wet foot, dry foot policy, which, in our opinion, is the main incentive for illegal immigration from Cuba to the United States.
The wet foot, dry foot policy shields most Cubans who reach U.S. shores from deportation. Tomorrow's talk should focus on reestablishing a U.S. embassy in Havana and a Cuban embassy in Washington. The U.S. hasn't had diplomatic relations with Cuba since 1961, shortly after Fidel Castro seized power there. Japan's prime minister says his government is doing all it can to free 2 hostages held by the Islamic State. He is consulting with regional leadership, hoping to save the freelance journalist and the founder of a private security company. They're being held by ISIS terrorists who are demanding a huge ransom. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says the nation will never give in to terrorism, but he won't say if Japan will pay the $200 million ransom demanded in that online video. A knife-wielding Palestinian stabs 11 commuters on and near a bus in the heart of Tel Aviv today. The attack happened near a busy intersection during the morning rush hour. Police chased down the 23-year-old suspect and shot him in the leg before arresting him. This appears to be the latest in a series of lone wolf Palestinian attacks recently in Israel. There are growing fears of continued violence ahead of Israeli elections in March. Indonesia's top accident investigator says there is no indication of foul play in last month's Air Asia crash. Investigators have downloaded all the information from the plane's voice and data recorders. Only the pilot and co-pilot voices were recorded. No explosions were heard. Radar data shows the plane climbed at an abnormally high rate, about 6,000 feet per minute, before dropping rapidly and disappearing. Only about a third of the 162 victims have been found. Rescuers are still struggling to lift the plane's fuselage and cockpit from the seabed. Up next, an amazing time-lapse video of the crowd gathering in Manila for a 6 million faithful mass. And pro-lifers converge on Washington for tonight's vigil mass ahead of the March for Life. EWTN News Nightly with our precious gift continuing coverage of the March for Life 2015. Good evening, I'm Brian Patrick. It's good to have you with us. Pro-life advocates from across the country are here in D.C. now for the March for Life, some still on the way. But tonight, thousands are pouring into the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. Our Jason Calvi is with them right now. Jason?
Brian, it's pretty chilly outside America's largest Catholic church, but inside it's really heating up with excitement. Upstairs and downstairs and in dozens of side chapels, people are packing in, ready to pray for life.
The snow couldn't keep them away. No, not today. The first people in the first pew of the National Basilica were here at 10 this morning.
We love watching the sisters that'll be right in front of us. The procession, we got a bird's eye view of everything. We see everything. We see the youth, which is our future.
Young people like Sarah Wagoner of Ohio.
It's amazing because it's my first year and I've always wanted to come. And I really believe that abortion is completely wrong.
So many people are praying for life at the Basilica that they're overflowing into the shrine's 70 chapels. This one honors the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This one, designed in the Eastern Catholic style. And here's a Vietnamese depiction of the Virgin Mary and Child. Tonight, TV monitors are up in the sacred space so the large crowds can join in the Holy Mass. Cardinals and bishops will be vesting in this room. They'll be part of an entrance procession that will take about a half hour. More than 500 chasubles are being donned by the priests and bishops, all to unite in prayer for life.
It's so important for us to be united in what we believe and build that gospel of life together in this nation, in this country that was built in the same foundation.
And the Mass is beginning right here at the National Shrine. Very shortly, we'll be bringing you the live coverage right here on EWTN. It's leading us to tomorrow and the March for Life. Brian?
All right, Jason, thank you. Brian Fisher is co-founder and president of Online for Life. He's the author of a new book, Deliver Us from Abortion. So Online for Life uses technology to rescue babies from abortion. How does this support the pro-life movement overall, Brian?
There's over 2 million internet searches every month in the United States for abortion terms. That's a great opportunity for us to go online, find a woman who is considering abortion, and instead give her the option to connect with a pro-life pregnancy center, of which there's 3,000 across the country. There they can receive genuine love and compassion, and oftentimes choose life. And we've been able to help rescue 2,602 children from abortion.
Can you give us an example of one of these?
There was a young woman from Texas, her name is Chandriel, and she had already given birth to one child, got pregnant, didn't want to be pregnant, and went online and searched for an abortion clinic in Dallas. And sure enough, we were able to intervene and get her into a local pregnancy center. And it took some time, and it took some care, and it took some compassion, but at the end of the day, she chose life and has a beautiful little daughter named Harmony today because of that merge of technology and grace.
Well, God bless her, that child, and the work that you're doing. You know, social media is often seen as leisure, fun, whatever. Here, this is a serious approach and very effective, I would imagine. Aren't you hiring professionals actually to do this?
We are. We have relationships with great agencies. Online for Life's Facebook presence has almost 600,000 people, and we share images and messages every day that resonate in 45 countries across the world. And believe it or not, just because of a Facebook page, we've been able to rescue even more children from abortion.
So you have some events that you're involved in as you're here for the March for Life. Give us an example of some of the things that you're doing.
Well, tomorrow we have a great forum inside the United States Capitol. Senator Ted Cruz is going to be there, and we're going to have some frank discussions with some other politicians about the sacredness of human life and what we can be doing legislatively, but also in the communities to rescue more children from abortion. And look, the ultimate goal is to end abortion in America, and that's the message that we want to send Washington, D.C.
I'm sure that especially the young people here for the March for Life will be sending a lot of messages through social media. How do you suggest that they participate in the March for Life in person as well as through social media to connect with a broader group all across the country?
Well, in person, certainly get here and grab a sign. There's great signs that a number of vendors and partners have available for them, and the hashtag #WhyWeMarch, which is the Marches for Life official hashtag. They want to be tweeting all over the place from all corners of D.C. and use the hashtag #WhyWeMarch.
And certainly there can be prayer connections. I know that there are a lot of people that want to make this trip that can't do it in the middle of winter, in the middle of the week. So there's a great way to draw others in, isn't there?
There is. Go to prolifeapp.com. Prolifeapp.com. It's a free app that allows folks to pray for women who are considering abortion right now. And it'll track their prayers, and it actually reports on how many babies they've been able to rescue through their prayers.
We'll have you back sometime to talk about the book, Deliver Us from Abortion. Just a very quick glimpse.
Well, unfortunately, although there are great churches doing great work on this issue, there's not enough churches doing enough work to end abortion in America. And this book is my private journey exploring why is so many in the church silent and what we can do to encourage them to get moving. Because if the church rises up, we can see the abortion epidemic ended in our country in one lifetime.
Brian Fisher, thanks for the book and Online for Life. We appreciate you. Want to remind you that EWTN will bring you the Mass from the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception just ahead, and watch the march here on EWTN all day tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. We will have EWTN News Nightly's special precious gift coverage of the 2015 March for Life. So how on earth do 6 million people come together in one place? Watch this. It's a time-lapse video from Rappler.com. That's a Filipino news website. It gives us a glimpse of the massive crowd assembling for Sunday's Mass with Pope Francis in Manila. Police estimated the crowd at a record 6 million. That's 1 million more than 20 years ago when St. John Paul II visited Manila. Until tomorrow, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Watch again anytime you like on EWTN's YouTube page. For all of us at EWTN News Nightly, I'm Brian Patrick, and we leave you tonight with these moments from the general audience of Pope Francis in Rome today. Good night, and God bless you.